before they ended up with that. Prior to that, he sort of led the Blockbuster online subscription service, which many of you know by their competitor. And prior to that, or excuse me, in between that. Yeah, I didn't mention the competitor that we know within social life.
Can we introduce you?
Keep going, this is getting good.
I asked him how he wanted to introduce, and he definitely mentioned the company's name. So what was really funny is when we were at an event 2 weeks ago, and this guy was going on and on and on about why Blockbuster failed and Netflix won. That was, you didn't want to see his face.
Technology.
Anyway, he's been through a lot of cool technology stuff. He was lead architect at Revolution Health, and these are some of DC's most amazing folks. And also TK is an incredible guy who Paul brought in because he's just been such a good advisor to Paul for a long time as well. So I'm going to stop talking, and I'm going to pass it on to Paul,
Sure.
and he's going to talk about why we're all here.
Can I go to the market picture?
Oh, sure, sorry.
Thank you. This works. All right, so real quick, for those of you that are working on your startup, how many of you guys have been working on it for like, I don't know, more than a week? All right, how about like a month? Well, keep your hands up.
Yeah, keep your hands up.
More than like a month. 3 months? Shit, okay, that's all I was expecting. 6 months. 9, a year. Okay, wow, that's cool. So, I've been through a few startups. I actually haven't had a real job for about 10 years now, and one of the things, and so most of those have been on the technology side. A couple have actually been on the brick and mortar side, believe it or not. And I'll also admit that I spent a lot of time, a few years ago anyways, on like TechCrunch and Mashable and all these other blogs. And what I realized was like every day, pretty much, you would hear about somebody's startup that was like sexy thing of the day and whatever else. And when I would like look into them or read up on them, what you really find is sometimes the story doesn't actually match up with reality, right? So that like it's not so much that they started up and they all of a sudden became like rock stars overnight. It was actually like they started up and then they like gave up on it and then like tripped and stumbled their way forward and somehow it all worked out. And so having done that now, so by the way, I actually have a blocker on my computer that keeps me off of TechCrunch and Mashable now. So having done that I've done startups for a few years now, I kind of realized that like startups are really hard. And I'm not trying to discourage you from it, but I think it's important to recognize that like in general, your competitors are better equipped than you. They probably have more money, they started earlier, they know more than you, they have smarter people working there. Your customers don't actually know what they want, or more likely they're just not very crisp about what they're actually willing to pay for. And then you have limited resources, right? You, whether it's time or money or whatever else it is, you just don't have the ability to beat somebody that's better off than you. So what I've kind of learned along the way is that speed is really your only competitive advantage. And I can talk about a lot of examples of that in my own career, but I'll let these guys tell you more about it. But in general, the good news is that I'm not the only one that believes this. So there's a guy by the name of Eric Ries, and his blog's up there, but he talks about the startups that succeed are the ones that manage to iterate enough times before running out of resources. And by iterate, he really means get around that whole loop of things, right? And you know, so again, the good news is I'm not the one making this up. But the thing is, though, is that like making yourself faster around that loop is certainly a good thing, but it's really bad if you're just going in circles, right? So like, you know, if you're building a better mousetrap and there's no mice, you're pretty much fucked. So when you really want to pivot is when you're kind of you're a vitamin, not a painkiller, to use that cliche. And two good examples of this, because they happen to me a lot, by the way, is you've launched and nobody cared. That happens quite a bit. And then the other, perhaps more important one, is that you've launched, you've got users, but nobody's actually willing to pay. And fundamentally, I'll just use that word in there. I won't use that. So a pivot really is just defined as like changing something in your business model. And it can be as simple as like changing your price. It can be something as drastic as just throwing code away. And in fact, that's actually what I did with Filtro. 3 months into it, realized that nobody was using the damn thing. I threw away 3 months worth of work and started over. And it's certainly really hard, but that's probably one of the hardest things you guys will face as entrepreneurs is kind of that balance between going in deeper with whatever startup or idea that you have versus just completely changing the model up. And unfortunately, I don't think any of us up here can tell you when you're supposed to make that pivot. I think you guys usually, like, we can give you best practices, but I think in general, you guys are probably the most knowledgeable about where you are in your startups. But once you make that pivot, the goal is really to build a minimum product to get early users, right? So features don't mean progress, and I can keep talking about this, but the point, like for me, the biggest realization about deciding when to pivot was realizing that I'm not the customer. For most of the stuff that I'm doing now, the idea started as an itch of mine, or like an itch of like a business or a friend of mine or something like that. And the important thing though is that I realized that I'm not the customer, and that well, anyway. So again, the good news is I'm not the only one I'm not the one making this stuff up. There's a guy named Steve Blank that talks about it, but the pivot's really defined as that part of the startup life cycle. And there's a whole book about this stuff, so I'm not going to like bore you with this. But fundamentally, like what Steve Blank, and I'll show you his book in a minute, but what Steve Blank talks about is that the first most important thing you can do is realize that whatever you're doing is not working, right? And then from there, once you realize that, kind of deciding what you want to do next, and then just kind of going balls to the wall with it. But again, the goal is building the minimum product to get early users. And I think you'll see that repeatedly through here, is that like most of these guys, or all these guys, have actually built cool stuff that may have only been cool to them, and then they pivoted and then built something else, and all of a sudden it took off. This is the book, by the way, 4 Steps to the Epiphany. If you haven't bought it, you probably should. It's very hard to read, so don't read it cover to cover. I just buy it, skim it, and put it on the shelf, and then you'll figure it out.
Drink. Just buy it, don't read it. Just tell me.
I'll put my affiliate link on here after this. Because I'm not entirely full of shit, so a year ago, actually, right after I did the Filtro sale, I built this thing called SnailPad, actually, a week or so after I had dinner with Jared. And we went from like selling one, so we're basically direct mail on demand. We did 1 letter the first day, like 8 the first week, and now a year later, we're doing like 40,000 a month. Didn't happen overnight, but it's really, I think, a good story, mostly because it's my own, but it's a good story because it's, I had to pivot the whole way through, because like I actually had to throw the code away one time, the name changed, the marketing changed. The other one is actually a CRM for notaries, right? Anybody, well, the lawyers know notary publics, but anybody else know what a notary public is? Yeah, okay. So nobody really, like, the majority doesn't know, but the funny part is that, like, that niche is ridiculous. Like, these are like stay-at-home moms that are willing to pay $30 a month, and Talheed's been helping me out with it more recently, but it's, I think, a good testament to pivoting. Like, it started out as a CRM for my wife and my mom, like, just really basic, and then kind of discovered this whole new niche, and once people started kind of using it, I just went kind of balls to the wall with it. So that's all I got, and feel free to reach out anytime you like. I'm happy to give you some advice.